This is the Sunday stream opening song because the other song is copyrighted. La 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 la. Oh look, here comes Dog Cat Fox.
Hi, Sky.
Whoops. Sorry. Here's what happened. So when I do the little opening video song thing, oftentimes now, I see a stuttered, paused version of it being played because of some goofy thing going on with StreamYard. And so I don't know exactly when it ends in real life versus when I see it because it's all herky-jerky. And so I don't know when to push the right buttons because I'm not given the right cues because everything. Anyway, that's all to say. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday stream, the stream I do on Sundays because Sunday is the day to stream on Sundays. Hope you're all doing well on this beautiful Sunday morning, full of technical difficulties, but hopefully no more. That'll be it. I promise, as much as I can promise. Yes, so good morning on this wonderful Sunday morning. Actually, a beautiful Sunday morning. Actually, it is really sunny out, blue skies, puffy clouds. It's perfect Sunday morning. Hope it is similar for you, or at least you are warm where you are rather than cold. Because cold is not fun, unless you like the cold. Anyway, who's joining me on this beautiful Sunday morning? Keeverdam, good morning, and thank you, Keeverdam, for providing the links to the GoFundMes at the top of the chat box, everybody, for our friends Moonshock, Natalie, Angela Ariaga, James Colley, and Rhonda. You take a look at those. If you can donate, please do so. If not, that's fine. But if you can share those out on social media, that would be appreciated. Noah Asensio, good morning. Mike R., good morning. Derek LaRue, good morning to you. And thank you, Derek, as always, for your continued generosity and support. Very much appreciated. Hope you're having a good Sunday. Hope you enjoy the show. Tier Alexander, good morning. Who else is here? Advocatus Diaboli, good morning. Funtime Bats, good morning. Let's see, who else is here? Mike Savage, Blarg. Kiro Soldier, good evening. I get caught on the TEDx kind of routine. Spoonie the Rebel, good morning. Faustonia, good morning. Shadowclaw, good morning. Ercole Di Stefano, good morning. Who else is here? Alan Thyler, thank you so much, Alan, for the lovely, happy Dogcat Fox. Oh, Dogcat Fox.
Wowie, wow, wow.
Oh, it's a Weebo Jones Dogcat Fox. Thank you so much, Alan. Appreciate it. And as well, appreciate your support and generosity. Hope you're having a good Sunday. Psionic Dreams, good morning. Who else is here? Spittle Buggies, good morning. And anyone else I missed before I missed? Going down the list. Simon Willikins, good morning. SWD40, good morning. And I think that's everyone. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I did, I apologize. And anybody lurking or in the future, good morning. So this episode is a bit of a follow-up to a couple of stories I did previously in regards to grant programs and the questionable legality of such grant programs, specifically from two organizations, one called Hello Alice and one called the Fearless Fund. Now, I'm not going to go over everything from previous. I'm sure the stories we'll read here will give us a bit of an overview, but some background. Hello Alice, strangely enough, has a unique place in Scribelite lore history because the very first person to ever follow me on Twitter was the CEO of Hello Alice, Elizabeth Gore. Now, why she did that at the time, I cannot say. I was always grateful for it because I was just like, wow, that's a very interesting person to follow me on Twitter. I was very grateful for it. I always followed her back and kept an eye on things. And it was just sort of one of those things. It's like, okay, maybe it was a bot, maybe it was an accident. Don't know. Either way, it was kind of nice to have. Well, that was until I did my video on Hello Alice and its grant program. And I tagged Hello Alice, and I think I did as well Elizabeth Gore in that. And I think I mentioned, she was the first person to follow me on Twitter. She blocked me right after that. Yeah, I was a little sad. I was a bit upset at the time, a little down about it. But hey, them's the breaks. But so I got a couple of stories here covering recent events in the Hello Alice and Fearless Fund sagas, let's say, in regards to their grant programs. We'll get into that in a moment. Let's see, a couple things I want to remind. What did I want to remind? I don't remember now. Wow, must have been really important. Good job. Good job, Scribe. Also, TC LaChance is here. Feel like I'm Viva la Revolution or something when I say TC La Chance. All right. Well, anyway, so let's take a look. This article is about Hello Alice and its grants for Black entrepreneurs. EEOC and investors support Hello Alice's grants for Black entrepreneurs. So before I begin, there's a couple of questions that have to go into this, or a couple of things to remember. One, these grant programs are for specific demographics, racial and or gender demographics. So the question of whether or not these grant programs are either racist and or sexist is settled at the front. The real question is, are they legal? Is setting up a grant program that is outlined specifically for people of a particular race and or gender in this case, are they violating the law? I've talked about this before. If you haven't already heard my opinion on it, we'll get into it as we proceed. So this is from Forbes, and I think it was just a few days ago. Yeah, well, April 24th, end of April. Companies providing grants for Black entrepreneurs faced uncertainty and loss of financial support due to lawsuits filed challenging the premise of these grant programs. However, Hello Alice is standing strong, closing its Series C funding round. Its resilience is also demonstrated by the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, and the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, amicus brief filing in the court cases. Hello Alice uses a proven effective model by community development financial institutions. Its success underscores the critical role of pairing grants with know-how to fuel economic growth among underestimated communities such as Black entrepreneurs. Are Black entrepreneurs inherently underestimated? I don't know. According to this, it is. This article feels more like an advertisement for Hello Alice, but who knows? While some may oppose efforts to bridge the wealth gap for entrepreneurs, well, now that's an interesting way to phrase it. Propose efforts to bridge the wealth gap. So these grants are pity or something? Okay. Resorting to legal roadblocks ultimately hinders the economy's growth, job creation, and the development of innovative products that meet the needs of emerging markets. Well, do they? Because that's not the prerequisites for these grants. The grants are predicated on the race and or gender of the CEO of the company receiving it. The quality and or innovation of the products involved in the companies run by these CEOs is at best a secondary consideration, sometimes a tertiary consideration after race and gender. So again, interesting way to phrase and frame this. These tactics, championed by a vocal minority, run counter to the interests of the majority who benefit from a more inclusive and thriving economy. That's one way to put it. Or you could also say that it's furthering racial discrimination by elevating skin color and or gender as elements of merit, which they shouldn't be, at least ethically speaking. Again, we'll get into the legality of it. Activist legal organizations challenge racial equity efforts. Again, interesting phrasing and framing. America First Legal, AFL, led by Stephen Miller, is suing Hello Alice, and the American Alliance for Equal Rights, AAER, led by Edward Bloom, is suing Fearless Fund. Both lawsuits challenge efforts to promote racial equity by providing grants to Black entrepreneurs. Or they seek to challenge the idea that giving out money to people on the basis of their skin color is appropriate, I guess. But again, we'll get into it. The lawsuit hinges on Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act of 1866, a post-Civil War law enacted to prevent discrimination against formerly enslaved people in contracts. Winning the lawsuits may not be the point. According to Bloomberg News, Bloom stated that investor pullback from the Fearless Fund was unsurprising. In a statement, Bloom argued, quote, "No investor wants to participate in a business endeavor that the courts are highly likely to find discriminatory and illegal," unquote. Not so sure about the and illegal part, but we'll get to that. Hello Alice and Fearless Fund initially experienced an immediate retreat among investors and grant program sponsors and launched expensive legal defenses. These diverted dollars would have gone to support financial inclusion efforts. Right, so the lawsuits have taken money away from the recipients of the grant programs and so on. However, months later, Hello Alice was able to close its Series C funding round with QED investors, MasterCard, Backstage Capital, Guy Fieri, Golden Seeds, Harbert Growth Partners Fund, How Women Invest One, Lavelle Limited Partnership, Tyler Ninja, and Jessica Blevins, Tamara Mowry, and Adam Housley. Okay. This funding will support Hello Alice's expansion of financing offerings and AI-driven financial health tools for small businesses. Sure. The fintech platform serves 1.5 million small business owners and has provided over $40 million in grant funding. In February, though not a party to the lawsuit, the EEOC, a government agency that enforces laws making discrimination illegal in the workplace, and in my opinion has done a very lousy job in the last several years given DEI's expansion, but anyway, weighed in with an amicus brief supporting Hello Alice. The EEOC argues that its guidelines allow for voluntary affirmative action programs in private investments and that a recent Supreme Court decision on affirmative action doesn't apply here. And as a layman, I would agree, but I'll get to that momentarily. It, the amicus brief, is a major legitimizer of how critical this case is, said Elizabeth Gore, president and co-founder of Hello Alice. Quote, 64% of net new jobs in 2024 came from small businesses, unquote, said Gore. Quote, if we limit the capability of small businesses to get funding, that is a big danger for the economy, unquote. Well, you're not talking about small businesses in a vacuum. You're talking about small businesses run by specific demographics in race. You're excluding and discriminating against anyone who is not Black. Unless there's some update to your grant program here. But anyway, late last year, the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights Under Law and the SPLC filed the first amicus brief supporting Hello Alice. Well, the SPLC being at your back might have been something 20, 30 years ago, but not so much anymore. Damage has already been done. Defending these lawsuits diverts millions from initiatives promoting financial inclusion. Won't somebody please think of the financial inclusion? Hello Alice and CDFIs supporting inclusive entrepreneurship. Hello Alice's approach to supporting inclusive entrepreneurship is similar to that of community development financial institutions, or CDFIs. Both provide access to grants and affordable financing with expertise to ensure business success. CDFI's assistance comes from humans, and Hello Alice's comes from AI-driven financial health tools. Still not sure about AI stuff, but anyway. Like CDFIs, Hello Alice provides grants to all small businesses, but also tailors some to groups with wide wealth gaps, such as Black, Latino, Native, LGBTQ+, rural, urban, and veteran communities. Okay, well then why even have... If you have grant programs open to everyone, why not just have grant programs open up to business model or skill set or some kind of showing of merit or talent? Why have any why distinguish it all on the basis of things that say nothing about a person's talent or ability? Why? But notice, just like with ERGs, veterans communities, we get veterans communities. Veterans are mentioned at the end. That's great. These communities face disparities that make starting and growing successful businesses harder because of their race. Okay, so these grants are pity. Okay. Grants provide the initial funding to overcome obstacles and avoid predatory lenders. And, well, yeah, since grants aren't lending, they're just gifts, I suppose that does help. Know-how equips them with the knowledge to manage finances effectively, build creditworthiness, and navigate future funding opportunities. This combined approach helps small businesses create a strong foundation for sustainable growth and economic empowerment. Okay, well, out of this list, the only things that make kind of some sense to me are either rural or urban. I'm not quite sure what rural or urban has to do with anything. Is it just assumed lack of education, assumed lack of ability or something? Veteran communities, again, if you're talking about a business grant, the grant should be based or determined in its giving on the basis of the business model, product, idea, whatever of the business. What does someone's skin color or even their veteran status have to do with it? Either we're pushing for a meritorious process or we're going to take pity on people because we see them reflexively as incapable of taking care of themselves. Not quite sure. Over the past 3 decades, CDFIs have proven the formula works. Quote, small businesses are a critical component of our economy, unquote. Nobody's arguing that. Nobody's arguing that. The key element here is, what are you using to discriminate on who receives the grant money? Is it merit or is it aesthetic? Which? We're not here talking about the necessity or the importance of small businesses. You keep trying to make it about the small businesses. It's not about the small businesses. It's about your decision-making process on who gets the money. That's the question. Small businesses are a critical component of our economy, said Michael Pugh, president and CEO of Local Initiative Support Corporation, or LISC. It is the largest U.S. nonprofit community development financial institution, or CDFI. You don't have to keep telling us it's CDFI. Just say CDFI. You've said it several times now. Connecting capital and know-how to historically underserved communities. Quote, it's imperative that we think about how we drive economic growth and employment, unquote. They keep mixing it up. Is it about small businesses or is it about specific demographics? Which is it? Black women-owned businesses are one of the fastest growing segments. Quote, the skill set and the idea of launching a business may be very high, but they are resourced, unquote, said Pugh. Depending on the person, I suppose. Okay. Decades of discriminatory policies, of which these grant programs don't have any, of course, included denied loans, unfair wages, and redlining in housing have significantly hindered Black families from building wealth. Okay. Black women, often the heads of households and facing a persistent wage gap, there's a joke in there somewhere, but I'll refrain, struggle even further. Limited access to capital and inherited wealth further impedes their ability to save and invest, perpetuating the cycle of economic inequality. To add insult to injury, a 2021 report by the Federal Reserve Banks revealed another troubling disparity. Remember the difference between disparity and injustice or inequity? Yeah. In financing approval rates, Black-owned businesses, even those with low credit risk, were less than half as likely to receive full approval compared to white-owned enterprises with similar credit worthiness. So the obvious reflex there is it's racist. There's racism taking place. There's nothing else. Again, this is the problem with the God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis. You say, this number is bigger than that number, therefore the space in between must be an ism. Because these two things are measured on the basis of race. Is there any other factors involved? I mean, I don't know. I'm not a financial expert. But when somebody says we're going to be talking about a disparity and see these two things, and I'm not going to say it's racism doing it, but we're going to imply racism is doing it and say nothing else about it. Quote, what would be helpful to entrepreneurs in starting or growing a business is to have some equity in their businesses that is patient, long-term investment in the form of debt or equity where sustainable growth is prioritized alongside financial return. Why is this all in brackets? Is that, okay, you know, occasionally you need brackets to sort of bring context to something that maybe was part of a longer statement or whatever, and that's fine. But this entire section here is in brackets. It's like, is that the author of the article injecting words into the speaker's mouth? What's going on here? Okay, or does it need, okay, let me try that again. What would be helpful to entrepreneurs in starting or growing a business is to have some equity in their businesses that is patient, long-term investment in the form of debt or equity where sustainable growth is prioritized alongside financial returns, or doesn't need to be repaid, unquote. So what you're looking at is a long-term loan or just free money. Yes, I suppose that would be helpful to entrepreneurs in starting or growing a business if you're just given money with no strings attached. That I'm not going to deny that would be nice. You didn't need to give me all those words to say that, but okay. Said Joyce Klein, Director of Business Ownership Initiative at the Aspen Institute. Aspen is committed to realizing a free, just, and equitable society. Sounds dystopian. And BOI drives innovation, scale, and impact within the U.S. micro-enterprise sector. Micro-enterprise? You mean small business? Why is everybody getting so fancy with their words? Anyway, often Black entrepreneurs do not have the personal wealth or friends and family with wealth to provide this capital. Many people don't have personal wealth. That's why they get business loans. Is the business loan industry just falling off a cliff or something? Do white entrepreneurs or Asian entrepreneurs do not get business loans anymore? Okay. Unfortunately, without grants or patient capital, Black women entrepreneurs may fall prey to predatory lenders, trapping them in high interest debt and curbing their ability to grow their businesses. They may, and I'm certain this never happens to anyone that falls outside the demographical intersection of Black women, but okay. The psychological toll can further discourage them from pursuing entrepreneurial opportunities, widening the racial wealth gap. This could happen to anyone, but all right. Quote, borrower protections need to be in place to ensure that borrowers understand what they're getting into, can make good choices, and are not subject to predatory practices, unquote, said Klein. You're right. That's true. That should be true for everyone. Why are you focusing in on people on the basis of their race or gender? What? And how do these grant programs solve that? How do you solve that problem by setting money aside for people on the basis of their skin color? It is critical to be connected to reputable, affordable financing, as Hello Alice and CDFIs do. Well, affordable? Well, I mean, if it's a grant, it is affordable because it's a grant. Here, it's affordable because I don't have to pay anything. It's time I just receive it. Reputable? Well, I don't know. A company that specifically sets money aside for you on the basis of what you look like, first and foremost? Quote, if those businesses are supported how they deserve to be, deserve? What's the deserve? You would then start to see this broader ecosystem of job growth and improved tax base, said Pugh, I suppose. And to wrap this up, if Black/African American women owned businesses achieved the average revenue of men, they would add $1.5 trillion in revenue to the U.S. economy, according to the 2024 Wells Fargo Impact of Women-Owned Businesses, a focus on Black/African American women. Asterisk. Wonder what that goes to. Do you know where to turn when you need financing for your small business? That's how you end the article. What's the asterisk? The author of this article's company, Ventureneer, co-produced the 2024 Wells Fargo Impact of Women-Owned Businesses. Oh, okay. All right. So a little conflict of interest there, acknowledged only at the very end. Okay. All right. So our author already had a bias. So this was a puff piece, a nice puff. I had as a contributor. I write about the success factors of women entrepreneurs. Okay. All right. So, yeah, that was all over the place and not really focusing on the issue. Okay, what is the question here? All right, well, let's go on to the next article because, like I say, I've got my own opinions on it. I've talked about them before, but we'll move on to the next article that deals specifically with the court case that all of this is coming down to. Let me zoom in a little bit, but in the moment, go over to the chat real quick. Advocate grants are people who travel to another world and were able to stay there, not people able to travel to other worlds. Sorry, my anime geek came out. I'll take your word for it. I am not a weeb. But apparently, you are. What else do we have here? Let's see. They always try to blame those with legitimate arguments. Well, the author in the first article kept bouncing around away from the issue. The issue at hand is not that small businesses aren't important or that grant money can't help small businesses or something. It's ridiculous. The argument isn't that there shouldn't be laws that protect entrepreneurs from predatory lending and so on. That's true. The issue at hand is it right and or is it legal to set aside money for businesses, first and foremost, on what the owner looks like? That's the main issue. And that's hopefully what this next article will tell us more about, because this is where the rubber meets the road, as it were. There is a court case currently in process that is going to purportedly at least further determine whether or not these grant programs are legal. So let's go over this. This is from the Washington Post on April 29th. Can this firm invest in only black women? This case will decide. The legal firepower on both sides of the Fearless Fund case reflects the disparate views on the nature of discrimination and the role of history in shaping public policy. And apologies for the text being awfully small here. I don't think I can make it much bigger than that. Well, maybe I can. Well, it cuts off on the edge, so sorry about that. They might be courtroom adversaries, but Arian Simone swears she and the man suing her venture capital firm want the same thing, an America where race does not matter. She said this before, and in my previous stream about Fearless Fund, listening to Miss Simone, she said the same thing. But how she's going about it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We'll see. The difference is that Simone believes race-specific initiatives like the Fearless Fund are essential to achieving that ideal. Given that Black-owned startups secured less than 1% of the nation's VC spending last year, she said, quote, "I can't stop," unquote. But the conservative activist driving the lawsuit, Edward Bloom, says racial equity is not one-sided. That's why he insists that the fund's grant program for black women is discriminatory. Well, it inherently is. In one of the most watched civil rights cases since he was on the winning side of the landmark Supreme Court decision that overturned race-conscious college admissions, or affirmative action. In the coming months, a panel on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in Florida will decide whether to block the Atlanta-based Fearless Fund from awarding $20,000 grants to black female-owned businesses while the case is litigated in trial court. The stakes could not be higher, as evidenced by the legal firepower lining up on both sides and the swarm of amicus briefs illustrating the vastly different interpretations of the nature of discrimination, the role of history in shaping public policy, and how civil rights should work in America. Quote, "This is the life and blood of the civil rights movement," unquote, the Reverend Al Sharpton said in an interview. How that guy has maintained any kind of career, given his lying and duplicitousness over the years, is insane to me. But anyway, if the Fearless Fund loses, the civil rights leader said, quote, "We are the generation that lost what preceding generations provided for us," unquote. Really? Okay. The VC fund may face long odds. Two of the three judges on the panel are Donald Trump appointees who, during a January 31st hearing, appeared skeptical of the fund's argument that the grant program is a form of, quote, charitable giving, unquote, protected by the First Amendment. Okay, this is a good point for me to give my layman's opinion on this whole thing. All right, so first and foremost, and we'll talk specifically about the Fearless Fund since it's so cut and dry. Is the Fearless Fund's grant program discriminatory? Yes, it's right there on the label. These grants are for people who run businesses, specifically who are black and female. That's it. First and foremost, that's it. Discriminatory, yes. Racist, yes. Sexist, yes. Are they illegal? Now, here's where the problem lies, if you want to call it a problem. Depends on how you look at it. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that I, Scribelight, have a $50 bill. $50 bill. I have a $50 bill, and I'm going to spend it at one of two businesses. I have two businesses in front of me. We'll say they're two bakeries. We have Bakery A and Bakery B, and they both sell effectively the same kinds of things. And I've got $50, and I say, which bakery shall I spend my money at? I think I'll spend it at Bakery A because Bakery A is run by someone who looks just like me. And I'm going to spend my money there because Bakery B has someone who does not look like me, and I don't like that. So I'm going to spend my money at Bakery A. What crime have I committed? If I go and take that money and I spend it at Bakery A for that reason, what crime have I committed? I haven't, right? I can have those prejudices in my mind. I can even state them out loud, though they might get me canceled. But I'm not breaking a law by doing so. Right? It is my money. I can spend it as I want. So long as I'm not giving it over to knowingly to an illegal enterprise or something, I can spend it as I choose for whatever reasons I choose, because that's First Amendment, that's my money, and so on. Now, a charitable organization or a corporation or whatever on paper is effectively a person. So if they want to give money, just hand over money for whatever reason to another company, to another individual, simply on the basis of what they look like, while it may be, as far as I'm concerned, unethical and certainly antithetical to the laws of our country and the spirit of the civil rights movement and everything else, is it illegal for them to do so on that basis? You see, and as mentioned in the previous article, Edward Bloom is not citing the Civil Rights Act of 1964 in his opposition to these grants. He's citing an 1866 civil rights law dealing with contracts. Seems a bit sketchy to me as far as a legal basis on which to say these grant programs are illegal or somehow unconstitutional in some way. So now the makeup of the court that is looking at this, as they say, maybe that'll have some kind of sway one way or the other. Maybe there's some legal nuance in the 1866 law and what's going on with Fearless Fund that may draw a direct line between that law and what's happening. I don't know, not a lawyer, not a constitutional scholar, can't say. But on the surface, I think I am safe in saying that these grant programs are unethical to a certain extent, but I don't think they are illegal. So we'll see what the article says going further. Should Bloom's American Alliance for Equal Rights prevail, the case could have sweeping implications for any race-based initiative in the private sector, particularly grant programs, scholarships, and other efforts with monetary benefits, according to observers on both sides of the issue. In less than a year, Bloom's legal nonprofit organization has reached settlements in about half a dozen cases involving scholarships and fellowships at large law firms, as well as a Texas-based grant program for minority and women entrepreneurs. All agreed to drop racial criteria to resolve the discrimination claims. Right. His organization has effectively played chicken with a whole bunch of other organizations, and rather than hold out and fight a legal battle that would probably bring a whole bunch of bad press and PR and questions and so on and so forth, they capitulated. Did they have to? Were they under any, actual legal threat? Can't say case to case, but many have. I think Morrison Forster was one that did. I'm still waiting to hear if Mulvaney, the law firm, the thing about Mulvaney was they had an internship program that was based on race and gender and so on. And that's a little bit closer to employment law than it is about these grants, because grants are not about employment. That's why the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Title VII, Title VI don't technically apply here, because giving money to someone does not mean you are employing them just to give them the money. And so that's why they're citing an 1866 law instead, or trying to. But the Fearless Fund opted to take up the fight because Bloom and his supporters want, quote, it to be illegal for us to fund ourselves, unquote, Simone said during a March 14th rally outside the Supreme Court before about 100 mostly black listeners, some waving signs that read, quote, defend diversity, equity, and inclusion, unquote. I'll just read that again. They want it to be illegal for us to fund ourselves, Simone said, before about 100 mostly black listeners waving signs that read defend diversity, equity, and inclusion. Inclusion, right, okay. Black women represent the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs and yet are the least funded, she noted. I keep hearing that, but I never, as far as I can tell so far, I haven't seen anything cited that says that, like any studies. Where are they getting that? But anyway, so, quote, we don't just need to defend ourselves, we need an offensive strategy, unquote. The fund's supporters include more than a dozen civil rights organizations, including the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the American Civil Liberties Union, as well as attorneys general of New York, Wisconsin, Maryland, and 15 other states, who argue in a joint brief that Bloom's group is misapplying a Reconstruction-era civil rights law, which was established to grant former enslaved people basic civil rights. Yeah, again, Bloom's legal argument seems pretty shaky to me. Quote, this is an inflection point, literally, for civil rights and how this country views civil rights, unquote, said Keith Harrison, an attorney who filed an amicus brief on behalf of the Lawyers Committee for Civil Rights under Law, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and others. Quote, what the plaintiffs are doing is taking the Civil Rights Act of 1866 and trying to turn it on its head so it becomes weaponized and undermines efforts to do exactly what the Civil Rights Act was intended to do, which was be remedial and race conscious, unquote. The Civil Rights Act was to be race conscious? I mean, race conscious insofar as acknowledging that race should not be used to discriminate against what? Okay. Again, not a lawyer. Maybe I missed something. Quote, we can't just forget 300 years of slavery and just call everybody equal, he added. We're not anywhere close to that yet, unquote. Dude, when? When will we be close to that? This calls back to part of the argument in defense of affirmative action in 2023 before the Supreme Court. There was a time 20 some odd years previous where one of the justices said that affirmative action in colleges should probably peter out after about 25 years. A line has to be drawn somewhere. When are you going to start treating race as a non-determinative factor of someone's merit? When? You can't just forget 300 years of slavery. We haven't forgotten 300 years of slavery, but we have to reach a point where we are not putting race on a pedestal of decision making. When is it going to be? We're not anywhere close to that. Well, how many years do we have to move out from slavery before we can say, let's stop using things that say nothing about a person's character or merit as assessment points? We can't just call everybody equal. We have to start treating people equally. We have to draw a line and do it. We're not. If you're saying that, oh, well, some people can get money on the basis of race and not. Again, I'm not talking about the legality of it. I'm talking about the ethicality of it, if that's even a word. Is it ethical? In terms of going along with the spirit of the Civil Rights Acts, in terms of going along with the spirit of what we want to get to as a country, are programs like this helping or hindering that progress? I think they're hindering. Should they be outlawed and banned? Not sure. As far as I can tell, there's nothing in law that says that I am disallowed from giving my money as an independent entity to someone or some organization merely on the basis of what that person looks like. It's silly, it's short-sighted, it's pretty dunderheaded if you ask me, if I'm going to just, oh, well, you're the right color person, I'll give my money to you. I mean, say that, think about that if it was a organization giving grants to white people, just white entrepreneurs. If you're white, you qualify. You wouldn't hear the end of the outrage over that. And yet the mechanism is the same here. Now, would it be any more or less illegal for an organization to do that, as I currently understand it? No, but it certainly wouldn't be seen as something to celebrate, because it's perpetuating an idea about what we value in people, first and foremost. Somehow that message is not getting across here. So yes, the question of legality is a legitimate one, but do programs like these help or hinder the progress that we supposedly want to make as a society? Aligned with Bloom are conservative organizations that in recent months have attacked affirmative action and diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, initiatives in higher education and the private sector. Well, I guess I'm aligned too, because I've been doing that for 7-8 years now. They include organizations such as the Manhattan Institute for Policy Research and the Equal Protection Project, as well as America First Legal, the organization founded by former Trump advisor Stephen Miller. Quote, what's at stake here is, are we going to move into a situation where racial discrimination is justified to attempt to cure broader societal problems? And I think that's a very dangerous place to head down, unquote, said William A. Jacobson, a Cornell University law professor and founder of the Equal Protection Project, a legal organization. A legal organization that opposes race-based affirmative action. Added Bloom, quote, there cannot be good racial discrimination and bad racial discrimination. This case examines how one person's good intentions lead to another person to suffer an injustice, unquote. Again, fundamentally, he's correct. Legally, still not sure. $60 million to zero. Simone and Ayanna Parsons, an investor and diversity consultant, that name sounds familiar. Have I seen her on a panel discussion or something before? Founded the Fearless Fund in 2018 to address the chasm in venture capital for startups run by women of color. No, run by black women. Why are you even trying to make it any broader than it is? It's black women, not women of color, not women who aren't white. It's black women. What? That year, such businesses received $484 million in investment, while black startups overall received $1.7 billion. 1% of the $131 billion allocated that year. Wait a second. That year, okay, well, how many, and again, you're broadening the demographics here, but okay, how many women of color business startups were there as compared to male startups? That is such a, okay, so, sorry, I'm not a math major here, So, venture capital for startups run by women of color. That year, such businesses, as in such businesses run by women of color, received $484 million in investment. While black startups overall, well, that means that they're included within the overall. Because women of color include black women, right? And you're just talking about black startups overall, regardless of gender. I'm okay. Somebody with a math degree or a business economics degree or something needs to tell me what I'm supposed to take from that, because I'm not quite sure. Those percentages, but there's only one percentage there. You only cite 1%. It's not plural unless you have more than one. Those percentages have largely held steady, though investment in black startups did see a surge in 2021 to $4.9 billion after the murder of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer prompted a flood of commitments towards the black community. Well, actually, the murder of George Floyd was used as an excuse by ESG and DEI programs to funnel money in to further their agenda. Had nothing to do with the life or death or circumstances of George Floyd, just that we had a big inflection point, a fire starter of an event. But by 2023, investment in black startups had shriveled to $705 million, or 0.5% of the $140.4 billion in venture capital awarded that year, according to Crunchbase. It also marked the first time since 2016 that investment in black startups fell below $1 billion. Why? What do you say is the mechanism that led to that? Why? Is it because investing in a business because of the look of the individual itself is not a smart way to go? I mean, you have to look at the quality of the product. You have to look at the business model, right? The merit of the business, not the appearance of the CEO. Could that be an issue? Could it also be the economic retraction after the pandemic started to fade away? Any other factors that led to this, or is it just racism? Are you, here's the question, God of the gaps theory of statistical analysis, are you going to go into what those factors might be, or are you going to leave it amorphous and just imply that it's racism? Let's continue. With its mission to direct a greater share of venture capital dollars to women of color, you mean black women. Why do you keep including demographics that they're not talking about? The Fearless Fund occupies a sliver of the impact investing market where investors aim to advance environmental and social causes through their stakes. Yeah, ESG, it's dynamite. The market is expected to hit $550 billion in 2024, according to the Business Research Company. Well, if ever there was a generic name for genericness, Business Research Company is it. Okay, so you're not going to say anything. You're not going to even speculate on what the causes might be for that change in investment. Okay, well, thanks so much, Washington Post. But the investment philosophy has drawn the ire of conservatives who argue that it is anti-business and meant to promote a liberal agenda. It obviously is, because they're not talking about the businesses. They're talking about the appearance of the CEOs, aren't they? It's identity politics in financial form. What other interpretation is there? It's part of a broader backlash that has coincided with resistance to DEI efforts in higher education and in the business world. What was that backlash, especially in education? Was it the Constitution? Was it federal law? Title VI and the 14th Amendment? You think those are just, passing ideas? Okay. The Fearless Fund's first VC fund totaled just over $25 million when it closed in 2021. Its second, which is still raising money, has amassed $19 million, according to PitchBook. The funds, in partnership with JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America, and General Mills, have gone to startups focused on fintech, personal products, and clothing. Oh, so it's gone to particular areas of finance or product. Oh, okay. What was the deciding factor on who received it? Oh, that's right. What does it matter what areas or realms the business is occupied. That's actually a tertiary consideration. Are you black? Are you female? Then we'll consider whether or not your business, well, it doesn't really matter. Simone also runs the Fearless Foundation, which administers grants to businesses, including through the Fearless Strivers Grant Contest, the program at issue in the case. In 2022, the foundation brought in $4.1 million, a 16-fold increase from the $251,000 generated in 2020, its first full year. Okay. In March, Simone met with lawmakers on Capitol Hill, urging them to recognize the magnitude of her case and act, either by calling her before a congressional panel or drafting legislation to protect race-based affirmative action in the private sector, she said. Title VII. But the case also has implications for the viability of the Fearless Fund itself. Since Bloom filed his lawsuit in August, fundraising has hit a wall. Quote, I haven't had a closing since, she said, meaning funding secured from investors. Quote, typically by now, I would have been about $60 million more, unquote. Would have been. Okay. People are a little cagey on investing in companies where the question is, are they being racially discriminatory when they demonstrably are? But anyway, JP Morgan Chase has opted out of the firm's second fund, Simone said. A spokeswoman who declined to comment about investments said in a statement that the nation's largest bank remains, quote, committed to supporting business growth and entrepreneurship among underserved communities, and to helping build a more inclusive economy, quote, which is good for business, unquote. Yes, but you're going to hold off on investing in a company that may soon be found to be breaking the law, which is a wise thing to do, because really the viability of the businesses you invest in should be a first consideration when making an investment, shouldn't it? Wait a second. I mean, Fearless Fund is run by a black woman. Shouldn't you just donate because it's the right thing to do? No? Okay. So you have considerations outside of just the appearance of the person running the company. Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. Meanwhile, MasterCard, which funded the grant competition at issue in the case, said its commitments to the Fearless Fund were unchanged, unquote, despite reports that the relationship was at risk. We're standing by you until somebody tells us we're doing something illegal, which again, I think is still shaky. Simone emphasized that the Fearless Fund's portfolio, the women-owned businesses it has invested in, is, quote, extremely healthy, unquote. The startups at the top quarter of the portfolio, she said, are expected to reach unicorn status, meaning a $1 billion valuation. Oh, which ones are those? Which businesses are those that are on track to reach $1 billion valuation? Would Ms. Simone like to name them for us? Would the Washington Post like to follow up on that claim? Why bother? Their success in an industry dominated by white men underscores the importance of her work, Simone says. Whose success? Whose success? What businesses are about to hit $1 billion in valuation from this portfolio? I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm just amazed that we're not talking about them. Washington Post. Are you going to name these off and verify or at least attempt to check on that claim in this article about the Fearless Fund? Are you? Okay, their success, whoever they are, in an industry dominated by white men. Which industry? You just talked about how he was investing in fintech and fashion and all this other stuff. Which industry? Their success in an industry dominated by white men underscores the importance of her work, Simone said. Quote, I would love a world that was equitable, where everybody received their fair portion, unquote, she said. That's just not the world we live in. If we lived in that world, I'd be fine. I can stop the Fearless Fund, unquote. Their fair portion. Okay, what's fair about discriminating against anyone who's not male and not black? Where's the fairness in that? Shouldn't your fund... I mean, in a perfect world, your fund would assess a small business's potential on the product, the innovation, the business model, et cetera, and so forth. Right? The actual merit of the business, not the appearance of its owner. But that's what you're doing. Again, not sure if it's illegal, unethical in context. I think so. It's unclear why the drop-off in venture capital funding has been so dramatic. It is? Okay, but Simone believes it reflects the ongoing fallout from the Supreme Court ruling against Harvard and the University of North Carolina last summer that upended race-conscious college admissions. Quote, people want to know what impact that ruling has had, she said, pointing to the plunge in VC investment. That's proof right there, unquote. Well, it could be that. It could be partially that. It could also be the economic retraction since the end of the pandemic and everything else there, the rise in inflation and so on. It could also be, and here's just a weird idea, it could also be that those initial VC investments in businesses simply on the basis of the race of the owner did not turn out profitable. That philosophy didn't inherently turn out to be profitable, that VC companies suddenly learned that they weren't willing to take the risk of a major loss, gambling on the appearance of the CEO versus the merit of the business. And so maybe that had a bit of a retraction. There could be several factors here. But sure, the affirmative action decision may have thrown a wrench into a whole bunch of philosophy regarding DEI and that entire thing, especially using the word diversity in your justification for making business decisions. Because the diversity argument is what was thrown out the window by the affirmative action decision for colleges. And Title VI and Title VII are kissing cousins. Charitable giving. Lawyers for Bloom's nonprofit organization argued that the Fearless Fund is violating the Civil Rights Act of 1866, which prohibits racial discrimination in private contracts by limiting its grants to Black women. The law enacted after the Civil War to give citizenship rights to formerly enslaved people is now being used in new lawsuits to challenge affirmative action and DEI programs. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, because how is that, like I say, fundamentally, how is that any different than me as a corporation on paper is an individual, right? That's where you get the liability insulation from and everything else. If I have a corporation, if I have a nonprofit, the entity that is the corporation or nonprofit acts as a person on paper legally. So if the entity or organization decides to give money to someone, give money, not employ them or anything else, but give money to someone for reasons that someone might feel are unfair or whatever, does that violate the law? Quote, I think Simone and I agree on the most important civil rights principle in American life and law. A person's race should not be used as a factor to help or harm them in their life's endeavors, unquote, Bloom said in a statement to the Washington Post, pointing to polls showing that a majority of Americans oppose affirmative action. Quote, she is gravely wrong, however, in her assessment of how our multiracial nation achieves these colorblind ideals, unquote, he said. I would agree with him. Still not sure she's breaking the law. I guess we'll find out. Quote, the law does not and must not permit racial preferences to achieve racial balancing, unquote, Bloom added. Excuse me. In other words, the bar must never be raised for some races and lowered for others to realize racial proportionality, unquote. Fundamentally, I agree with him, but I'm still not sure if it's illegal. But the fund's attorneys and a chorus of civil rights organizations say Bloom is twisting the civil rights law's intent. They also contend that his lawsuit is meritless because the Fearless Fund's grant program is a form of charitable giving, thus expression protected by the First Amendment, and that it operates much like organizations that support people of a certain heritage, such as the Order Sons and Daughters of Italy in America. On January 31st, those arguments were heard by an 11th Circuit panel composed of Trump appointees Robert J. Luck and Kevin C. Newsom, and Barack Obama appointee Robin S. Rosenbaum, which will soon decide whether to block the grants while the case is being litigated. Luck and Newsom appeared skeptical of the Fearless Fund's First Amendment argument. Yet Simone remains optimistic, noting that she's less concerned about who appointed the judges deciding her case than the, quote, climate that we're in, unquote. Quote, this is a very critical time, she said. If you're going to strip away people's resources and economic rights, it's almost a reverse back to the early 19th century, unquote. Well, I'm not quite sure about that. But again, I'm not sure that the Fearless Fund or Hello Alice or anybody else making grants based on these elements are violating the law and are not protected by the First Amendment. Since we're talking about, as we say, giving away money as you please, the money that you have, it's your money, versus employment. So that's still the question. And apparently that will come up in the near future. Let's see. Advocates Diaboli FinTech didn't know there was a lot of black-owned scuba employee companies. Oh. Ay, caramba. Let's see. Shadow Claw. Wasn't the predatory lending bit worsened under Obama's administration? Wouldn't their cause put people in that predatory situation again? I don't know. Again, I'm not an economist. I'm not a finance expert. Like I say, there's an ethical problem here. I'm not sure there's a legal one, but that's being decided. Anybody else? Boy, Advocatus, you have a lot to say. You have a lot to say. Boy, oh boy. Dominating the conversation, Advocatus Diaboli. Let's see. So, a reverse to the 19th century one way, a reverse to early 20th another. Well, like I say, I'm not sure. I'm not sure it's illegal. But let me finish off our little look and update on current events with an article that talks to people who have received the money and see what they have to say. So this is from a publication called 19th News. I hadn't heard of them before this, so take it for what it's worth. Their businesses were transformed by a grant program for Black women. Its future is now at risk. If this ends up just being mostly a recitation of what we just read, I might skip it and just call it a day. Hopefully we're getting into the stories from the actual recipients. A conservative activist who successfully challenged race-based university admissions has sued over Fearless Fund's grants to Black women business owners. Bettina Benson was getting off a red-eye flight from Los Angeles on her way home to Marietta, Georgia, when she received an email that altered the course of her business. She was a recipient of a 2023 grant from venture capital firm Fearless Fund, established to help Black women small business owners gain access to capital. Benson, a self-taught designer, started the online clothing brand Chloe Kristen in 2016. For her, receiving the grant was about alignment between the fund's goals and her own mission. Fearless Fund understood the challenges Black women entrepreneurs face, she said. Quote, running a business is inherently challenging, and as a woman of color, especially being self-funded, and with the gaps in funding, challenges can be even more intense, unquote, she said. If you say so. Black women entrepreneurs find it harder to access traditional forms of funding from banks, and as well as grants and venture capital funding, according to a study conducted by Crunchbase, a company that provides statistics about businesses. Why? Again, why? What are the factors? Or again, are we just going to let it float in the ether that it obviously must be racism and or sexism? White men receive a disproportionate amount of venture capital funding when compared with women business owners. Do they? The funding gap between white men and Black women entrepreneurs is even bigger, with Black women receiving less than 1% of venture capital funding, the report found. Why? Is it racism and sexism? Is it population demographics? Is it anything else? Is there any other factors involved in this? No, there's a disparity, guys. Do you see the disparity? The disparity obviously means an injustice is taking place. Maybe there is. This is why I hate this stuff so much. It's like either you have direct evidence that something unjust and or potentially illegal is taking place, or you don't. If you do, why not relay it? Simply saying one bar bigger than other bar, therefore evil, doesn't work. And if you don't start going into the details, you either might be, maligning an entire, business unjustly, or you might be covering up an actual injustice. Not saying how this works, not providing evidence of what it is you are implying helps nothing. If there's actually something untoward taking place, you need to provide the evidence of that, not just say one bar bigger than other bar. This got cut off a little bit in the printing, so I'm going to extrapolate. Led by Arian Simone and Ayanna Parsons, or maybe it's founded perhaps, but it's founded in 2018. Fearless Fund has raised I think it was like $125 million to invest in Black women-owned businesses. The small venture capital firm has also awarded more than 350 grants through a number of different programs, one of which is the Strivers program that awards $20,000. Those grants have gone to Black women business owners to help close the racial disparity, again, disparity, and give them the same opportunities for economic advancement, according to Simone. Right. According to the person who's running the fund with the mission. Okay. But now, Fearless Fund's ability to provide grants exclusively to Black women is at risk. Right. Did we just hit an ad or something? Okay. I don't know what happened here with printing this out to a PDF, but I guess we got an ad somewhere in the middle. Okay. Edward Bloom, a conservative activist who led the fight to strike down race-based affirmative actions at colleges and universities, has sued Fearless Fund in federal court. Bloom and his organization, the American Alliance for Equal Rights, claim that the fund's Fearless Strivers Grant contest discriminates against other races, it inherently does, and violates the Civil Rights Act of 1866. That's at question. A law created during Reconstruction to support Black people, particularly those who had been previously enslaved. In the months ahead, a group of judges at the U.S. Court of Appeals for the 11th Circuit in Florida will determine whether to stop the Fearless Fund from awarding the $20,000 grants to Black women-owned businesses while the case is making its way through the legal system. The lawsuit is part of a bigger conversation that worries civil rights activists across the country. Again, this one thing, it's just, are you able to give money to somebody on the basis of what they look like? That's it. That's really the question. Is it legal to do so? I think ultimately it's probably going to be proven to be legal and fall under the First Amendment, but who knows? They fear that if the Fearless Fund's grant contest is struck down, it could also be a threat to other organizations focused on helping historically disadvantaged groups. The American Alliance for Equal Rights suits are just part of the effort by the right-leaning groups to block diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. The right-leaning groups that just upheld Title VI from the Civil Rights Act of 1964, that just upheld the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Yeah, boy, oh boy, real right-leaning organizations upholding things that are supposed to bring more equality and fair treatment across the country. I know, it's cray-cray, isn't it? What a looking glass we have stepped through. America First Legal, an organization founded by Stephen Miller, who advised former President Donald Trump. They always have to tie this guy to Donald Trump. The most important thing to know about Stephen Miller, he used to advise Donald Trump. Okay. Has sued fintech firm Hello Alice over its grant to Black-owned small trucking companies. Benson and other women who have benefited from Fearless Fund grants say the program has been life-changing. Well, of course it's been life-changing. If you receive free money for no other reason than your skin color and your genitals in the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, of course it's life-changing. Is it right? Is it ethical? Legality is still up in the air, but is it ethical? Do you think that kind of prejudice, beneficial prejudice, do you think that's a good thing? Do you think that ultimately that is a good way to see and deal with the world? Before receiving the grant, Benson had challenges with funding inventory for wholesale orders, marketing, and attracting the right talent. She was in the process of filing some, quote, pretty significant wholesale orders, unquote, when the funds arrived, providing a much-needed buffer. Okay, so her business was already on track. Her business was already doing well. So did she need the money? Quote, you fill those orders and then you get paid, but you have to have funds to be able to invest in production and your material, unquote, Benson said. Yes. So you don't make promises you can't fulfill. Were you on the verge, or did you know you wouldn't be able to do that? What? The fund has allowed her business to grow, she said. She has even launched a new clothing line. Well, yeah, of course. You got free money for nothing. This is a defense. I don't know why it keeps cutting off this text. Someone Norris, CEO and founder of Selfie Skin Company, a skincare brand aimed at... Oh my gosh, do I have to go back to the actual... I'm going to have to go back to the actual article. I thought it'd be easier using PDFs just for the sake of things, but let me at least reference. This is just silly. I apologize, guys. Technical difficulties. How printing out a PDF of an article leads to sections being chopped off, I don't understand. Let's see. Where are we? All right. Janelle Norris, CEO and founder of Selfie Skin Company, a skincare brand aimed at Black women. Unsurprising, had tried for a grant from Fearless Fund a few times before she got one in July. She was in the process of recording a video at her friend's house for another grant application when she learned that she was in the final round of the selection process. Her friend still had the camera rolling when Norris received the news and cried tears of joy. Okay. Norris received a $10,000 Fearless Fund grant through a different program than the Strivers one being targeted by Bloom. So many different grant programs. The money did not just impact her business, it also created opportunities for those around her, she said. Okay. It allowed her to expand her products from 2 to 6 and get help with both project management and marketing. Okay, you got free money. Quote, I don't think that people realize that when one brand gets a grant, it's not just that one brand. You're really supporting an ecosystem of other women minority-owned businesses, unquote, she said. Really? Because it sounds like you got the grant. And why, again, elevating the value of someone's genitals. A woman-owned business, is it suddenly going to be a good business, a successful business, a business worth investing in? Okay. Norris credits Fearless Fund for helping her brand gain visibility through the venture capital firm's website. So they gave you a shout out, okay, as well as allowing her to invest in organizations that served underprivileged people and her employees. Well, if you couldn't pay your employees before, what? Are your employees also underprivileged people? Just, okay. But not long after she received the grant, she said, uncertainty set in. Well, you already have the money, so what's the uncertainty? A friend pointed out Bloom's lawsuit after she posted about the grant on social media. She worries about the entrepreneurs who are planning to apply for grants in the coming years. Quote, for me, it was okay. I got rejected, but you know what? I'm going to just try it again next year, and I'm going to work on it throughout the year until it comes back around, unquote. Norris said, quote, to the entrepreneur who got that rejection in 2023, there's nothing to look forward to in 2024 because someone has decided to attack programs that are beneficial to women of color, unquote. Well, that's a pretty short-sighted way of looking at it. It's attacking a program that is racially discriminatory. Again, whether or not it's illegal, but that's it. I thought we were going to get much more in-depth looks at how this affected recipients of the grants. I got money and I was able to spend it on my business. The end. Okay. Ooh, boy. All right. Well, anyway, Shadowclaw. All this makes me think of a video about a woman freaking out on Asian workers that were selling boba tea, claiming it, quote, wasn't black owned, unquote, and Asians stealing black culture, unquote. Yeah, I really enjoyed all that, all the movement during the pandemic and everything, and during the Black Lives Matter protests of 2020 and so on. Support black-owned businesses to the exclusion of any other owned businesses, and just support them because the owner looks a particular way. I mean, again, just flip it around. If it was support white-owned businesses, right? If you had grants that were exclusively for white men, you're telling me that there wouldn't be an uproar about that? Of course there would be. And I'd be just as unsupportive of such things as I am about the Fearless Fund, because it's the principle of the thing. Again, whether or not it's illegal, whether or not that 1866 law is found to be applicable to this in some way, is almost beside the point to me. All right? I mean, if it's a free speech argument, then by all means, put your money where you want to put it. And you should be judged on how you decide on who's worthy of your support. If you're going to elevate race as something that says that this person is worthy of support because of their skin color, well, it is a First Amendment situation, but societally speaking, you will be judged on the actions that you take. No different than if you had an organization that was saying, I'm only going to support white men businesses, right? that business could continue to do that. They would not be seen as a very popular business based on their philosophy, but that's their right to do under the First Amendment. I may not agree with what you say, sir, but I will defend to the death your right to say it, etc. Same thing here. I think Fearless Fund, unless it is found somehow that they are breaking the law, should continue operating as they want to operate. And people that want to support such an idea should continue to do so because they will be showing off, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, their true colors. Do you believe in the idea of assessing people on their merit or on their appearance? Which is it? You shall know them by their deeds, as they say, or as I've said, paraphrased probably badly. Anyway, a couple more minutes for anything you guys want to say, and then I will wrap things up. Whoops. Well, I clicked on that. I clicked on the same thing. Pardon me. Random American. Hell, I could expand my side business too if I had more money. I know, right? Imagine that. If you got free money, no strings attached, could you expand your business? Could you do a whole lot of things? It's amazing, isn't it? And that was the sum total of this profile. Two different women, I think, in the course of the profile, received money out of the blue that they didn't earn. That was just a gift for no other reason than they looked a particular way. And suddenly they were able to expand their business. Now, are those businesses guaranteed to succeed? No. But then a grant isn't an investment. So it's not like there's anything at loss here for Fearless Fund. But then they keep complaining about VCs. This is the part that kept confusing me. On the one hand, grant programs are just free money. On the other hand, VCs are venture capital. They're expecting a return on investment. They kept complaining about how VCs kept contracting their investment. Well, why might that be? Obviously, the implication from the previous two articles is, I guess, racism and or sexism, because they didn't start going into, well, what were their returns on those initial investments into businesses simply on the basis of the appearance of the CEO? Did they talk about that? Did they mention that? No. Interesting, they didn't. But grants, well, it's fire and forget. Here you go. Here's a check and we're done. You either rise or fall on your own merits after that, but the decision to give you the money had nothing to do with your merits. Right? We can look like we're doing good things by giving money to people on the basis of what they look like, but not having to really take any interest in their success story afterwards because we don't have any financial investment in them, literally. It's all for show. Anyway, venture capitalists are otherwise so nice if their client isn't brown or female. I know, right? Yeah, venture capitalists will continue dumping money into a business that has absolutely bad returns as long as the CEO is white. As we've seen, that's just how it works. That's how business works. When the numbers don't add up, the first question is, well, what's the CEO look like? Oh, well, okay, I guess we'll continue taking a loss. And if there was a VC that did that, here's the thing. If there was a VC that did that, if there was a VC or a company that was dumping money into something simply on the basis of the appearance of the person, regardless of losses, what's going to happen to that company eventually? What are the investors in that company going to eventually say? What's that going to look like? I don't know. Like Disney right now? If you continue to be willing to take a loss on projects simply because of the aesthetics of the people involved in the project, regardless of the outcome of your return on investment, eventually something's going to give. Either your bank account or your stockholders. It's one of the two or both. Just saying. Luna, just looking at my number of grants for being a white dude that runs a small business. Yeah, 0. I am, however, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. So yay. Right. Well, you just have to find that grant program that's going to give you money because of what you look like. Never mind your business model. Never mind your productivity or your margins or no. And that'd be fine. That'd be fine. I would love, and no one asked this. I've looked at 2 different instances of the CEO of Fearless Fund being talked to or interviewed or otherwise. Once on a news show and once at a congressional hearing of a kind. And I would have loved somebody to ask her, would you support a organization similar to your own that provided grants to white men? Right? Because here's the thing. If she's operating, and at this point I have no doubt to believe that she isn't, but if she's operating in a legal territory, a righteous territory on the basis of her beliefs, would she support such an organization? Of course not, because, well, you see, historically speaking, white men have not been oppressed, so on and so forth, as much as black women. Therefore, black women deserve to be discriminated in favor of, and white men don't. But she couldn't say they're doing anything legally wrong, is the problem. She would have a hard time arguing that they're doing something illegal, right? Because that puts her on the exact same footing with her organization. Anyway, anything else before I wrap up, as it were? Shadow Claw, let's see. We already read that one. Matt, how many wars have black women fought? Well, I mean, do you remember the Woman King movie? That was the Woman King. Yeah, there was a war fought in a movie. I mean, how many wars? I mean, I'm sure there've been plenty of wars that black women have fought in. I mean, just in general? Or are you talking about like totally leading them and being the majority population therein? Yeah, well, not sure about that one. But anyway, with that, everybody, I'm going to call it here. Just want to do a follow-up on what was going on with those. As that court case proceeds, and once a decision is reached in the appellate court, even though that's not the final say, that's just on whether or not the grants can continue while the case is in litigation, I will do an update of some kind. Beyond that, you can find me here Thursday nights at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern for TED Excellence, where each week I go over an off-brand TED Talk for education and enlightenment on one subject or another. Also, did you know I have a Discord server? A link to the Discord server is now in the chat. Just click on that. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word tells me that you're not a bot, are in fact a human, and have thus earned the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is disparity. Just say hello, disparity. I guess I should have said hello, Alice. I'll take either one. Just say hello, Alice, or hello, disparity, and I'll know that you watched the show. Beyond that, shout out to my YouTube friend. Just make sure do I have his link here? I don't have his link. Dang it. Wait, is it on his profile? Yes, it is. Okay, let me copy that here. Okay, in human form. I want to make sure I had his link ready. In human form. I think this will work. No, hold on. That is a Twitter link. That is not a YouTube link. Let me get the actual YouTube link. There we go. There we go. All right. In human form. Link in the chat box. In human form, a YouTube friend of mine does documentaries and essays regarding true crime and society and all types of different things. He is ramping up, fingers crossed, in the near future once he gets done with his studies to start making videos again on different content in regards to society and other such things, because very eclectic. So take a look at in human form. Some of his original true crime stuff is, as far as I'm concerned, right up there with Matt Orchard. He and Matt Orchard were two of the best disciples of Jim Can't Swim, or Jim personators, as I call them. I've had Inhuman Form on several times to interview him about true crime and other things. So take a look at that. Beyond that, everybody, again, moderators. I'm getting so confuzzled here. Moderators, thank you so much for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the GoFundMe's pinned to the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. What are your thoughts on the legality and or the ethicality of these grant programs? Leave comments below if you would. I'd appreciate it. Also, leave a like on the way out if you could. I'd appreciate that as well. And also appreciate if you have a good rest of your Sunday, rest of your weekend and week ahead of you. I also hope that you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.